But this is Yom Yom. This is sayings by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The 14th of Menachem Av in 1941. This is the previous Rebbe speaking. Now, the previous Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, he basically had 3 periods of 10 years in his life. The last 30 years of the previous Rebbe's life. He became Rebbe when he was 40 years old, and he passed away when he was 70. So the last 3 or 30 years of his life, and the first 30 years of his rulership, that was in Russia, and he was imprisoned. He took over in 1920. So in 1927, he was imprisoned, and he miraculously got out. That's also Yud Beit Tammuz we just celebrated. And finally, the Russian government evicted him from Russia. Now, that was basically in 1930. And then he went briefly to Israel and then to America. He went for almost a year, and then he came back just to see what was going on. And then he came back to Europe until the war broke out, and he was in Poland for 10 years. And then he went to America. In the last 10 years of his life, he was in America. So this is already said when he 1 year after he arrived in America. So he said the 14th of Menachem Av in 1941. So he arrived in America in 1940. This is 50 years since my father told me to begin writing down the stories that he told me. When the Tzemach Tzedek began writing his explanations, his commentaries on the Talmud and Hasidic subject, the first Rebbe said, this is one of the stories. The first Rebbe said, Kana lecha ukane lecha chaver. You should acquire for yourself a friend. We just finished talking about Pirkei Avot, right? The ethics of the fathers. So this is in the first of the 6 chapters. It says, Kana lecha chaver. You should purchase for yourself a friend. In other words, I have to have someone that can be your friend, even if you have to expend money and time or whatever, in order to have a person that's your friend, that you can talk to, you can learn with. You should expend, you should kane. But the word kane also means like a pen, like a staff, a stick. A kane is a stick. And used to be a pen. It used to be one time a pen was they would take a stick and they would put it into ink, or a feather, put it into ink, whatever. It says kane l'chachaver means, the simple meaning is acquire a friend for yourself. But it can also be the kane l'cha. You should change the vowels a little bit. The pen, your quill, the pen should be your friend. What does that mean? Your pen should be your friend. It means write down things. If you haven't got anyone to learn with, then write down what you learn. My father once quoted the first Rebbe of Chabad, V'kana, that the quill should be your friend. And he said, this refers to the quill of your heart. The pen of the heart means that whatever you learn, you should try to experience it emotionally. Kana l'chachaver means that your heart also should be your pen. Sometimes it says that the heart is the poetry and song, right? Comes from your heart. That's the pen of the heart. Because everything you learn in the Torah, that should be taken personally. You should take it personally. Find some message and some lesson you can learn personally from everything you learn. That's really kana l'chachaver. So we have 3 meanings of kana l'chachaver. Simple meaning means acquire for yourself a friend. First Hasidic meaning, that your pen should be your friend, but you have no one to learn with. Write things down, write the ideas down. And the third one is that your emotions, everything you learn, you should experience it somehow or other personally. That should be your friend. First meaning. Second, here we go. Yom Yom, 1 minute. From my father's notes, the superior quality of the 15th day of the 15th day of every other month Right? The 15th day of Av, it says in the Mishnah, was the happiest day of the year. So there were no happier days to the Jewish people than the 15th day of Av, which is going to be tomorrow, Shabbat, and Yom Kippur. Happiest day of the year. Why they're so happy? Yom Kippur was the day that everybody got forgiven. So that's a little bit understandable. But the 15th day of Av, that says the moon is full. Shows that the Jewish people have been redeemed and forgiven for what they did that caused the temple to be destroyed. On the 9th day of Av, the full. It says, one second, every month the moon is full. It says, what's the difference? It says the 15th day of Av, this represents a visible completeness of the moon. But the moon still receives the light of the sun. That's every month, right? That's the way it is. But the 15th day of Av, we say the light of the sun is firmly fixed. Why? Because it's coming as to show us that even after the descent of Tisha B'Av, when any normal person would say, and that's what everybody did say, that God has abandoned the Jewish people. That's it. After the first temple, they said it. And then when God said, no, I didn't abandon you here. You're going to have a second temple. So after the second temple, everybody said, for sure, God abandoned us. No, right? So nevertheless, there came the 15th day of Av to show that the Jewish people are compared to the moon. And just as the moon is full after it becomes empty, after it was empty, so the Jewish people will be filled after the 9th day of Av. Therefore, that's what it means. After the drastic descent of Tisha B'Av, nevertheless, the moon can still be full. That shows on a great level of happiness. In other words, even though God seemingly abandoned us, destroyed the temple, scattered us all over the world, and we deserved it. Not a nice thing to say, we did. But nevertheless came the 15th day of Av and said, God loves the Jewish people unconditionally, no matter what we did, no matter what we deserved, no matter what God seemed to be yesterday as attitude toward the Jewish people. But in fact, it'll change in 1 second. God loves the Jewish people. That's the 15th day of Av. That's the meaning when it says that on the 15th day of Av, that the days become the days become shorter and the nights become longer, that the power of the sun is weakened, means that idolatry, the idolaters, they calculate their calendar by the sun, which is nature, which on the 15th day of Av, it starts weakening. In the days of the temple, all of the nations in the world, they were subservient to King Solomon. So certainly it'll be that way in the future when all the nations will come to the Mashiach in a state of total surrender. Then I will remove the spirit of impurity from the world. This is expressed on the 15th day of Av when the sun is weakened. The sun is made weak. And so in other words, the sun mainly is the power of nature. And Judaism is here to change nature, our own nature, and also to show that there's a creator. And the creator created us in a way that he wants us to change, improve. And that's the whole idea that the sun becomes weakened from the 15th day of Av. That's a sign of God's love for us, that he increases our success and our ability to change nature as represented by the sun. Now, story. 1 minute.